right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know, one of the things I've often wondered when somebody is in law enforcement, and specifically if you are undercover or maybe even a spy, I've often wondered what do you take from all of that as far as your how do you sum up humanity? Do you see humanity as mostly good, as we like to believe is mostly good? But I often wonder, when you're in a world where pretty much your whole mission is to make sure bad guys don't do what bad guys do, I wonder if you get jaded into thinking, or maybe it's not jaded, maybe you've got the reality and I'm the one who's jaded thinking that most people are good. Eric Burkhardt might know the answer to this. Listen to this. Eric was a CIA spy or a case officer. I guess case officer is their lingo. Is that what it says here, Robin? Yes. You know, before we went on the air with Eric earlier, when I was talking off the air, I was telling him he'll be speaking to you and me, and I made sure I mentioned Robin as a lady, because sometimes Robin could be a guy, right? He says, "Yeah, I know." You see, he's a spy. He looked you up.
Yes, he is. He's a spy.
Anyway, he's written a book, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this. I'm going to give it a shot, though. I'm wondering if these slashes over the A's mean they're long A's. Mukhabarat Baby. Mukhabarat Baby. Eric Burkhardt is on the phone. He is the only American spy who was poisoned by a Russian and lived to tell the tale. His book is subtitled Mortars, WMD, Mayhem, and Other Memoirs of a Wartime Spy. Eric, my goodness, you've got our attention just with the information we've been provided. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Thanks, Larry and Robin, for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience this morning.
And I should have known that you would have already known that Robin was a lady. I should have known. This is a guy who probably, you always look up everything before you talk to anybody, right?
Well, you know, Robin's one of those really interesting names where you can't be sure at first, so then you want to check beforehand.
That's right. Yes.
You did a good job with your pronunciation. Depending on what country you're in, you'll hear it pronounced differently. I'm used to it being pronounced as it looks, which is Mukhabarat.
Okay. Okay.
It's actually a word that in Arabic means intelligence officer, special police, that type of word.
You know, with the story we had just, was it yesterday or 2 days ago about something nuclear? I don't even know what was found or who was smuggling something. The work that you all do, I mean, truly is keeping us safe. I can't imagine living in a world where we weren't spying to be able to stop somebody from carrying nuclear weapons into our country.
That's a real interesting point you make. The CIA doesn't just work overseas. They have a very good liaison relationship with federal law enforcement to keep our borders safe. And during my career, one of the most important things that I took out of the time that I spent with the organization was just the amazing people that I worked with who do spend their careers living in the shadows and not really getting any
Eric, did we lose you? Eric?
He's still there.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, the lights are still
Eric,
there.
I don't hear you if you hear us.
I hear you.
There you go.
There
There you go. Now you are.
is.
Okay, you dropped off about 10 seconds, 20 seconds ago.
Oh, forgive me. Yes, my experience has really taught me what an amazing group of people work for the agency. They work in a job in which they have to live undercover, and you don't get a lot of regular positive reinforcement when you're living undercover. And they work every day dedicated to keeping us safe. And the world has become such a dangerous place.
When a spy uncovers information that needs to be delivered to somebody else, explain how that is delivered, and maybe even give us a history lesson. I'm sure it's way different today than it was once upon a time. I mean, was it carrier pigeon back in the old days? I don't know what they would use back then.
You know, Larry, the espionage has changed quite a bit in the less than 2 decades that I was working for the CIA. It was much more traditional in the past, where there was a lot of cloak and dagger work in some of the big cities in Europe, and it was the Soviet Union versus the United States, and then it became China and the Soviet Union versus the United States. Since 9/11, intelligence gathering has really had to refocus itself on collecting against terrorist targets. And also economic espionage has become a very important part of the game. Governments now are very interested in providing information to their own business communities that will help us in the economic world as well.
Okay, so that's an interesting aspect of it. So when I was talking about the nuclear weapons, that's part of it, and obviously an important part, but it's not just about those kinds of espionage, I guess, behaviors. I don't even know how to ask the question. But it sounds like what you're saying is it goes beyond what we really realize. Are all those things, I guess they're spelled out in the book, right?
Yes. After 9/11, everything started focusing on the war on terror. We went to war, and the agency mobilized in support of that, and it changed espionage. Normally, espionage was more the typical meeting people in cities, in clandestine meetings, in clandestine meeting arrangements, leaving messages behind to trigger meetings, keeping your contact safe. Normally, what a CIA case officer does is he goes overseas, finds a target that has access to information that is important to the U.S. government. You develop that target, meet with them over time, and develop a relationship, and discover whether or not they would be amenable to meeting with you regularly and providing you with information that the U.S. government needs. Many times, the people that you meet with will do so because they want to see their government change and become more like the United States. Other times, some of the motivations are financial, but in my career, I was lucky enough to meet with people who were motivated by the right ideas. They wanted to see changes in their governments, and they put their lives on the line to provide us with information that our government needs to keep us safe and promote freedom in the world. When 9/11 happened, we had to learn how to conduct espionage differently, which was targeting terrorist groups, which are very different than targeting people who work in government ministries.
Even though you are multilingual, how did you manage to get the trust from the people so you could do your job?
Oh my goodness, it's very difficult, but you would be surprised how many people around the world look to the United States as a beacon of hope for change in their own country and in their own lives. And people, they look for you and look for an opportunity to speak to you in a safe environment. And so you have to put yourself in areas that you would normally put yourself in that might be a little unfamiliar, so that those people will feel comfortable approaching you. That's one of the ways. When you're working in a war zone, it's a lot different. You've got to actually go out and force the meetings with people, because you have to find infiltrations of terrorist groups. It's a very difficult thing to do. We also do have operations where we will try and turn people to work for us who have been already working inside those groups.
And Robin mentioned your ability to speak several languages. I'm guessing to be authentic, you had to not only know the languages, but you had to be able to speak the dialect so that nobody could detect that you weren't really French, for example, or any of the other languages that you would be speaking.
Well, fortunately for me, my first language was French, and I can speak French fluently. And I'm from Texas, and I learned Spanish while working for federal law enforcement. My Spanish is pretty good as well. The real languages that are useful today in intelligence are Chinese and Arabic, although Russian is beginning to make a bit of a comeback. The agency has the most incredible language instruction center, and they teach the officers before they go overseas a particular language. And some languages, they actually have assimilation programs where you live in that environment for a year to learn those particular dialects.
Oh, wow. So as a spy, are you working side by side with soldiers, or are you, like what we see in the movies, are you like a lone wolf?
Well, Larry, it's both. In the past, the agency really avoided working closely with the military. Those were two separate types of jobs. The environment we live in now, with terrorism being such a regular part of our lives, has obliged the intelligence agencies to work much more closely with not only the military but with federal law enforcement as well. And in my career, I did a lot of work one-on-one with the U.S. Army, with the SEAL teams. There was an amazing amount of cooperation following 9/11 that exists still today. I am so incredibly proud to have been part of the mobilization that took part in our line of work, along with law enforcement, to work together when for so many years there was a little bit of, give and take in between the organizations.
Eric Burkhardt is our guest. His book is called Mukhabarat Baby, and he is a CIA spy. And the book will tell you, when you read the book, what it's really like to work as a spy for the CIA. We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back. And your calls are welcome. Am I right about that, Eric? Are you okay with calls?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a little break, and we'll be right back with Eric. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Hi, I'm Seth with AA Lock, Dock, and Security. Have you ever thought about the locks or security on your house or business? Have you ever wondered why the keys to your new car cost so much? Well, at AA Lock, Dock, and Security, we can help with securing your valuables. We can even replace those expensive transponder keys. We can give you the knowledge that no one else will. Call AA Lock, Dock, and Security at 867-1965. That's 867-1965.
Ooh, ouch. Does pain have you glued to the couch? Yes, unfortunately it's true that every year we must get older, but that doesn't mean we have to deal with pain in our back, knees, or shoulder. If your muscles and joints are sore, don't worry anymore. Come get acupuncture from me and you'll be pain-free. Acupuncture starts as low as $35 at a Better You Healthcare. Call me, Dr. Erica Olstein, at 615-5566. Stop your pain from driving you insane.
Central Florida Eye Institute is the area's leader in laser vision correction. From high-definition refraction surgery and LASIK vision correction to custom cataract, glaucoma, and diabetic treatment, you can count on Dr. Crowley and his effective, friendly staff to provide you with the quality care you deserve. Call 352-237-8400 for an appointment or more information. That number again is 352-237-8400. Looking forward to service your vision needs.
It's an in-state rivalry game this week as the Florida State Seminoles take on the Miami Hurricanes. Make sure you check it out right here on WOCA, brought to you by Tri-Eagle Sales, your local Bud Light distributor. The kickoff is at 8 p.m. this Saturday night. Florida State versus Miami right here on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA The Source, brought to you by Tri-Eagle Sales. Don't miss it.
11 minutes before 10 o'clock. There's something that the movies do to us to make us believe that being a spy is glamorous. And it's certainly, the movies have done one thing that I think is accurate. Whether they're glamorous or not, I guess we can ask Eric. I'm guessing he's going to doubt that or say it's not. But I think the one thing the movies get right, at least some of them, is that we have our security because of people who have dedicated their lives to being spies and sacrificed for us. And in fact, Eric, from what I understand, almost died from a poisoning. Eric Burkhardt on the phone. His book again is Mukhabarat Baby. Let me spell it for you. Mukhabarat. And he did tell us earlier that it's an Arabic word which did you say it means intelligence? Or
Yes, it means an intelligence person.
intelligence person, okay, which is what you were. So did you get discovered? Is that why it's the title of the book? Did somebody say, hey, you're a Mukhabarat baby?
You know, it's interesting, Larry, when you're working overseas and you're doing work with the military and you go into these communities and you're the only one who is wearing civilian clothes, these people pretty much understand what your role is, so you hear yourself identified amongst the group. Yes, because their host country has the same thing. They have their intelligence people working with their military as well, and they don't have uniforms either because we're supposed to blend into the regular population.
Okay, can I ask an out of context question here? I just happened to open the book to a picture, a lovely picture of a lady in the snow. Regina Brinsfield, who is she?
That's a friend of mine who was very supportive of me when I was poisoned. She helped me regain my health and focus my energies on my spiritual rejuvenation, which is a big part of the book. The reason why I wrote the book was it was a twofold approach. I wanted to give an idea to the reader what the real agency was like, what it really was like behind the scenes, and I also wanted to discuss some aspects of working for the CIA that were really misunderstood because of the mass media culture 007 ideas.
Right.
In my book, I spend a good deal of time talking about our intense training regimen, which was an amazing experience for me. And I talk about learning about how to meet and develop people to provide intelligence, and also about the different people that the agency has employed. The agency isn't just about case officers, it's about intelligence analysts, people who collate the information. Once the intelligence is collected overseas, someone on this side has to put it together and deliver it to the right customer. So for those people who are interested in working for the agency, there's a tremendous amount of other jobs available besides just being a case officer.
Right.
But you really had to relate to all of the different people in your line of work. You not only had to relate and blend in with the regular people, but you also were privy to meeting with President Bush and the president of Iraq. So you had to have all of this different knowledge and protocol at your fingertips.
Yeah, it was a fortunate opportunity to meet with President Bush. When you work overseas, occasionally the president will come and visit some of the locations where you're working, and you have that opportunity. I was very fortunate to have met President Bush, number one, and number two. And when you are working overseas in war zones, sometimes you'll be meeting with people that are what you think are just the head of an organization, and 1 week later they're the president of the country. And that's always a real interesting experience as well. The agency has a structure that allows the intelligence officer, the case officer, to understand where to go to get what they need, to get direction, targeting information, and to know where to deliver the intelligence. So you're right. You do have to know what department to go to, what office to go to share that information. But it's all pretty well part of training.
Eric, is it always clear what the motive is? And do you ever question even the United States if it's a political agenda? Does it ever occur to you, or have you ever thought, oh gosh, I don't know that this is really something I feel comfortable doing? Or is that even not part of the job? Is your job simply to do what the government tells you to do?
You know, Larry, for me, I entered the profession as a patriot, and I became more of a patriot during my career. The experiences that I had overseas made the lines very clear for me from black and white. There are bad people in the world, and there are good people in the world. And we always end up on the side of the good. And we make tremendous sacrifices as Americans to do so. And there are people out there right now that are putting their lives on the line, not just CIA, but definitely our troops. And that is something that we do as Americans.
Yeah.
And
well, you point out in the book about the Abu Ghraib story, and how we as Americans probably had no clue that there even was an Abu Ghraib until that story. And sometimes the press does that. The press will take a story and try to make a really good agency look bad because of a few individuals. Give me some feedback on what I just said.
That's a really important point. I wanted to talk about Abu Ghraib because I was in Iraq at the time, and I spent some time at Abu Ghraib, and I saw all those players. I met all those players that people saw on the television. When I wrote my book, I put a lot of things in my book that I did not know would survive the redaction process. The agency reviews all written material before it's published to decide whether or not there's any classified information inside. The agency, for some reason, allowed a lot of information that I haven't seen in writing before come out in my book. And I'm really grateful about it because it will help people understand the reality away from the James Bond. Now, regarding Abu Ghraib, that was a very difficult situation for us because we were working out in the field and we saw something that, from our perspective, wasn't nearly as egregious as what the press was making it out to be. And it was the press's attitude towards that incident was feeding the enemy and causing us to adjust our policy.
I think a lot of us thought that too. And I guess you know that we thought that.
I've learned that a lot of people did, and I'm glad because I was overseas at the time. Now, when I wrote my book, I decided beforehand that it was going to be as non-political as possible. Right. I wanted to appeal to everybody, and for the most part, I have avoided politics. I do discuss Benghazi in the book because I knew someone who was one of the unfortunate victims, and I felt I had something to say about that incident. So that I do touch on in the book, but basically I try and keep the book about people and the jobs that they did and how they're just normal Americans like everybody else who are choosing to do a job that they will probably in their lives never get proper credit for.
Did you have any residual effects of the poisoning?
Yes, having been poisoned was a big part of my career. It didn't impact my career from a progressive perspective. I continued to work, but it did almost take my life, and I did have to retire earlier than I would have liked. But the person who poisoned me, he was a Russian, but we aren't 100% sure, but it doesn't appear that he was acting on behalf of any state plot or plan. It appeared that he was just an unstable man who was trying to have some fun in the spy game to liven up his really boring existence.
Wow. Eric, I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for being on the air. Eric sent us a copy of the book. I will give it to the first person who calls and asks for it. The rest of us have to go buy it. It is called Mukhabarat Baby, spelled M-U-K-H-A-B-A-R-A-T. But rather than expecting you to do that real quickly, Robin will put it on Facebook. Let me get this call real quickly. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
It's Dennis Morgan.
Dennis, you got it. It'll be waiting for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Eric, thank you so much. Do you have a website you want to give us real quick?
Yes, www.mukhabaratbaby.com.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
All right, that's easy. And again, Robert will put that on Facebook so anybody who needs the spelling can get it there. We'll take a little break. This is WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Flooding in South Carolina estimated to have destroyed more than $300 million worth of crops. This as conditions remain dangerous to people.
First responders are shuttling food and